ladies and gentlemen, seeing all of you and knowing that you braved the cold this early winter's night to be here warms the cockles of my heart, to use a favorite phrase of Singaporeans. I really appreciate your joining us for this unique evening to celebrate 60 years since Singapore gained independence and since Wolfson College was founded in 1965. To me, Wolfson College is the most Singaporean of all Cambridge colleges. I'm willing to debate anyone at the Cambridge Union on this motion, and I suspect I might be able to persuade John to join me on the proposition. Now, Wolfson College is the most Singaporean of Cambridge colleges, not just because it has a Singaporean as its major benefactor in Dr. Lee Seng Tee, who sustained the legacy of his father Lee Kong Chian, especially in philanthropy for higher education, also in many other places of higher learning, including the other place, but none as proportionately prominent as at Wolfson College. I knew Dr. Lee in the 1990s because I was a journalist like John, and journalists get to meet all kinds of people. Dr. Lee gave me some career advice, which I did not follow. If you want to know more, we can tell you over drinks later. But I am sure Dr. Lee would be smiling if he could have joined us tonight. Well, Wolfson College is the most Singaporean of Cambridge colleges, also not because both country and college swear by the colours of red and white, often embellished with gold. And we also love our lion symbols, which are everywhere at Wolfson. It's also not because we both started in 1965. As this slide shows, Singapore started its existence as a sovereign nation on the 9th of August 1965, its separation from Malaysia. And Wolfson College started life at Breeden House on the 30th of June that same year as University College, with just 6 postgraduate students. So the founding of the country and the college was just over a month apart. Once again, something in the stars connecting Singapore and Wolfson College. It's also not because of the many Singaporean students and alumni at Wolfson, including the current President of Singapore, Mr. Tharman Shanmugaratnam, who completed his MPhil in Economics at Wolfson in 1982. In 2023, when Mr. Tharman was standing for the presidential elections, because of a legislative change in recent years, our presidents in Singapore now need to be elected. Mr. Tharman chose, every candidate has to choose a symbol. Some choose a horse, a teddy bear, or whatever. Mr. Tharman chose a pineapple, which he told the media he chose it because it is a propitious symbol, his words. This one is from Marks and Spencer. Imported from Costa Rica. I learned Costa Rica has been the source of pineapples to Cambridge for decades, maybe even centuries. Now, the question in my mind is, did Mr. Tharman have the Wolfson College pineapple in his mind when he selected his election symbol? I'll ask him the next time I see him. But meanwhile, later at drinks, please enjoy the pineapple juice which has been requested for tonight, instead of the usual orange. The request was put in. I hope it's being delivered. In preparation for this poetry evening, I sent an email to a certain alumnus, and he replied within a day. And so we have a special bonus for this evening, a message from the President of Singapore, Mr. Tharman Shanmugaratnam, a congratulatory message for Wolfson College on its 60th anniversary. These are his words. My warmest congratulations to Wolfson College on its 60th. Like Singapore, still young, still excited by the pursuit of discovery, and still determined to keep diversity at the core of who we are and can be. Now, Mr. Tharman is known to have written and had published poems in his youth. And you can see, even just from these few words, that he's still very much a poet. I'm sure he wrote this himself, not his press officer. And the reason is the use of alliteration. If you notice, the determined, discovery, diversity. The hallmarks of any poet. And so this diversity is very well represented both in Singapore and at Wolfson College. At Wolfson by the current president, Ijoma Uchegbu, and in Singapore by women who have been at the highest levels of representation, such as our former President Halimah Yacob. The reference to diversity highlights the deepest reason that Wolfson College is the most Singaporean college, the core values, the cultural DNA that is shared by country and college that we all gathered to celebrate this evening. Now, this takes me to the first of 5 poems that I'm going to read. The first one is A Brief History of Payoh. Now, Payoh in Hokkien means big swamp. Payoh. My dear wife Dora grew up in a place in Singapore called Paya Lebar, which for those of you who don't Malay means wide swamp. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the first Prime Minister of Singapore, made this famous speech on the 12th of September 1965, and there's a phrase that it keeps being quoted, which is that Singapore would develop from mud flats to metropolis. Once again, the alliteration. This one is the speechwriter. So from mud flats to metropolis, and the fact that my wife and I grew up in places which used to be swamps, shows that was very much a reality of Singapore. So, perhaps like Singapore and Wolfson College, she and I are also predestined to be paired with each other. This poem is one of my longest. It's the most anthologized, and I'm starting with it because it captures a slice of Singapore history. It demonstrates where we have come from. This slide shows the book cover. The book was published in 1992, and that's the author photo that was used in the book. And it was taken in a block in Lorong 1, where I spent much of my childhood. Now, in the 1960s, Singapore and Wolfson College were busy building foundations, literally. Singapore, with its intensive and extensive public housing program in what we call the heartlands of Singapore, and Wolfson College trying very hard to expand beyond Breeden House. The early years of the country and college were also connected by Queen Elizabeth II, who visited Toa Payoh on the 18th of February 1972. And then 5 years later, she was at the official opening of Wolfson College on the 9th of November 1977. Now, a few weeks ago, my wife and I took an Uber, and the driver, who is of Iranian ancestry, told us that he remembers when he was a schoolboy being, his school had arranged for him and his classmates to line up on Barton Road to welcome the Queen for this opening. And he remembers her waving with her black gloves and in her maroon dress, as you can see in the photo. So, a brief history of Toa Payoh. They say there is no history made in Toa Payoh, that economy, polity, state are major tenants in significance as state. But this being whose amniotic fluids, swamp and swill, were channeled seaward through monsoon drains, instant rivers, was once a brave new world of giant pigeonholes sky-looking. Rigid under morning sun, a pioneer in its time, so should not earliness and vision receive, as in Sentosa's museum, decorum, grace, and privilege of place. The pride and self-sufficiency of early settlers eclipsed. Town centre, bus terminal, the first Siap Games, the emporium's sacks of fragrant rice, children's playgrounds, the gardens, lake and tower, the Queen's lookout, excite no more. And the children of Toa Payoh are the mothers and fathers of woodlands, Pasir Ris, distant orbits of the new satellites. This town delivered so fast, labor pains now claim a second strike. This time, cranes and the wrecker's ball strip the old town, colonize once more this, one of modernization's first ports of call. In our history's eye, growth is so swift, rebirth also gets short shrift. The second poem I'm going to read is titled Shoring Singapore. The word shoring is taken from the construction industry. It means putting up some kind of temporary support in the process of building. And is used here to lend support to multiple meanings as applied to Singapore's tussle with space. The poem is from the book The World Anew, which was published in 2023. It's a book of 32 poems and haiga artworks from my time as the poet in residence, 2021 to 2022, during the pandemic at the National Gallery, Singapore. The poem was inspired by an artwork that was at the Light to Night Festival 2022, titled Fragment of a Shoreline. What the artist did was to create a sandbox that they placed in the middle of the Padang to recreate the shoreline of Singapore as it was approximately in 1843. This map shows the extent to which Singapore has increased its land size by about a quarter since independence. The artwork Fragment of a Shoreline was placed at the Padang, and the poem also refers to how grass is relayed after every National Day parade. So it's a kind of metaphor for Singapore, an island of unending uprooting and reinstatement. And Wolfson College itself is in some ways like Singapore in this respect. It has its own land acquisition program. mostly in and around Barton Road. And this article is very recent, it's August 2023, shows that the obstacles it comes up against repeatedly. This poem is a sonnet in rhyming couplets. Shoring Singapore. Shoring, just temporary support in construction jargon, but becoming an enduring foundation, buffering this interface. Each sea conquest, redrawing boundaries, layers, fresh bequest, redistributing earth from other banks, Padang relayed after flags, fireworks, tanks. As mandates, visions, plans reconfigure, son of the soil becomes a metaphor. Who knows what other shorelines might await, which realignments fit for even more open trade, how higher tide lines can again be redrafted for on revamped drawing boards as crafted bay and downtown herald a brighter future for this shifting city in nature. The third poem I'm going to read is titled Nanyang School. Nanyang means in Mandarin South Seas, or the waters south of China. It also refers to an art movement of Singapore's pioneer artists. The poem is also from the book The World Anew, from my poetry residency at the National Gallery, Singapore. The poem was inspired by a painting by the pioneer artist Chen Chong Sui, who together with his other pioneer artists made a trip to Bali in 1952, which was totally transformative. Because after that trip, they came to see their own art completely differently. And to a large extent, Singapore has much of this same spirit. The Nanyang School reaffirms the spirit of rediscovery and reinvention. And this is akin to the cultural DNA of Singapore as a whole. As we see very prominently, for example, in 2015, the exhibition, The Future of Us, trying to imagine a future together. And this year, that was SG50, this year SG60, we've had initiatives including the new book, Redefining Singapore, a book of 26 essays, taking stock of where Singapore is in all its key aspects, from politics to pop culture, and examining what are the possibilities for paths that can be taken for the future. Now, renewal is also the central theme of my book, The World Anew. And the book title is taken from a line in this poem, Nanyang School. And the line is, such an enduring legacy of seeing the world anew. There is another line from the poem that applies particularly to Wolfson College, which is the old welcoming the young, which is captured in this image. You can see a Braden House on the right and all the newer buildings to the left, joined by many phases of later construction. A concrete example of the old welcoming the young. There is also an abstract aspect, a botanical metaphor in the forest pansy tree, which used to bloom magnificently just beside the Porter's Lodge. It was planted in 1977. And then in 2023, the tree collapsed and split into half. Maybe it too suffered the toil of the pandemic. And the wood has been used to make benches like the one shown in the picture on the left. But what is amazing is that from the old stump, new shoots began growing almost immediately. And by the spring of 2024, there were already pink flowers growing from this old stump. Nanyang School. Just one 1952 trip, one encounter that taught, imparted so much, left such an enduring legacy of seeing the world anew. Bali, a perfect case study of branding's underrated power, positioning this ideal many times over since this enticing locale's global showcasing for the Dutch colonial project. Then in a clutch of other ways later, in which this island renaissance in turn inspired blossoming in other terrains as in Singapore, ground up, organic, catalytic, finding, touching, imbibing the purity of man, harmony with nature, a lodestar in spirit, the old welcoming the young, renewing afresh the soul of Nanyang. The fourth poem I'm going to read is titled Cambridge Revisited. It is a poem dedicated to Cambridge. And it comes from my second collection of poems titled The Worth of Wonder, which was published in 2001. This autumn, in 2025, I couldn't be at my usual Cambridge class reunion. And so what I did was I got my dear wife to help me video a reading of this poem at this spot, which in my opinion is the best place to catch autumn colors in Cambridge. It's this little peninsula on the Cripps Court side of Queen's College, but you're right beside an amazing maple tree, and you're looking onto the Cam and King's College Chapel. This poem was written in around August 1992, when I visited Cambridge. It was the first time I visited since graduation, and I was actually attending a British Council literature seminar. It was held at Downing College, and the highlight of that event was a surprise appearance by the writer Salman Rushdie. That was the year of the fatwa, so it made global headlines. After that visit, I wrote a column for the Straits Times, and this is a screenshot of it. And it was about, I was musing about things that shouldn't change, or don't change, like Cambridge. Although on this visit, I've seen that Cambridge has changed quite a lot. And this was during the time when I was the youngest member of a national committee called the Censorship Review Committee, which was headed by the most loved diplomat in Singapore, Professor John Koh, who's an alumnus of Trinity. And this is a citizens panel to review all the media policies in the country except those that apply to the mainstream media. So hence the musings in this column about things that don't change, and on questions such as whether there's such a thing as absolute values. Now, things that don't change also apply to aspects of character like integrity and features like authenticity, which are captured in the Wolfson College's motto, "Ring True." Cambridge Revisited. Recovery can be restful. when all the interim is endurance. Everywhere I look, even the stones look newer, younger now, scrubbed with care, no doubt. Yesterday's grime scraped off for the day before to gesture once again. But the best part is, tomorrow too, I'm sure you'll stand, same steadfast monument measure. When the faces of change, masked cycles, rotate in awkward metamorphosis, when the urgency to revise, update, upgrade disturbs the core, the stamina of stone and all it embodies, holds, reassures. It's been a while since 1284, but here it's clear you're not too far away from how it should be, how it was before. This is my fifth poem. It's the shortest and most recent. It was written just last week, and it's dedicated to Wolfson College. It is an artwork in the genre haiga, which is not very well known even in Japan. In 2015, I was invited by the Japan Foundation to visit Japan under its Cultural Leaders of Asia program. And this was when I came across this art form, haiga, which essentially is a haiku with a visual art element, either an ink sketch or watercolor. In this case, I've only used pencil because I don't have my usual equipment. Now, haiga is a niche art form, and if you think about it, in the history of art, having words and images on the same canvas or piece of paper is actually very rare. It happens very seldom. I've experimented with this art form ever since 2015. And I have been able to stage a few exhibitions already in Singapore and also in Laos. The picture on the right shows haiga work titled National Gallery Hosei, which is on sale in the merchandise shop of the National Gallery, Singapore. There is a term that I must explain in the haiga, which is in its title, the Hokkien term online, which has two meanings. One is pineapple, and the other is prosperity has arrived. Wolfson online, fated to ensue is fortune, when faith, focus, feats, cohere, ring true. Now, faith, focus, and feats are about what you believe, faith, what you do, focus, and what you achieve, feats. And when they are all aligned, then prosperity will come to you. So in Singapore, we have this inspiration as we try to continue to apply human ingenuity to enhance the quality of life. And at Wolfson College, as it continues to strive to provide the best education for a better world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for such a lovely, it was really lovely to hear all the poems, but the last one is very special to us, and Rick will now present this to John, and the college is delighted to accept this wonderful poem. Thank you.